How some carriers give you so little for your older busted phone you just end up living with it? I don't think so. Verizon lets you trade in your broken phone for a shiny new one. You break it, We upgraded.
You dunk it?
Doggy bone it. Slam it. Wham it. Strawberry jam it. We upgrade it.
Get a 5G phone on us with select plans.
Every customer, current, new, or business.
Because everyone deserves better. And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
Today is Wednesday, January 5th, 2022. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We're one day away from the January 6th anniversary of the insurrection led by Donald Trump and his maggot idiots. The day thousands believed the lie and rushed the U.S. Capitol to stop the presidential vote verification. Democrats are going to focus on it. Republicans are trying to ignore it. Also, the first U.S. case of Flurona has been detected in Los Angeles. We'll give you the details. Plus, there's got to be a connection in the bomb threats to 9 HBCUs. We'll take a look at which schools were targeted. A Philadelphia man is out of prison after 37 years and finding out the key witness in his case was convicted of lying not long after his conviction. You won't believe what the witness got in exchange for his false testimony. The oldest World War II veteran, the Basketball Hall of Famer, and an R&B singer, they have now become ancestors. We'll tell you who they are. Plus, actor Richard Lawson survived a plane crash. He also became a soap opera star even after firing his agent who suggested the idea. A great conversation, Rolling with Roland, one-on-one interview with actor Richard Lawson. All of that. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Tomorrow marks January 6th. That is the one-year anniversary, the day when thousands of maggots supporting Donald Trump went to the U.S. Capitol to protest. It turned into an insurrection and a riot. They attacked numerous Capitol Hill police officers, throwing things at them, causing mass destruction. It was an awful, awful day. Republicans goaded that on. They, of course, saw these things unfolding, and then they were doing their best in order to try to allow it to continue. They wanted to thwart the, of course, certification of the election of Joe Biden. Today, Attorney General Merrick Garland spoke to the issue in terms of what the Department of Justice has been doing to hold those individuals accountable for what took place a year ago.
Necessary consequence to the prosecutorial approach of charging less serious offenses first is that courts impose shorter sentences before they impose longer ones. In recent weeks, however, as judges have sentenced the first defendants convicted of assaults and related violent conduct against officers, we have seen significant sentences that reflect the seriousness of those offenses, both in terms of the injuries they caused and the serious risk they posed to our democratic institutions. The actions we have taken thus far will not be our last. The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law, whether they were present that day or were otherwise criminally responsible for the assault on our democracy. We will follow the facts wherever they lead.
Let's go to our legal panel and talk about that. Of course, joining us right now is A. Scott Bolden, former National Bar Political Action Committee Chair. Robert joins us right now. First of all, Robert Patillo, Executive Director. This long title, y'all. Rainbow Push Coalition, Peach Tree Street Project. Monique Presley, legal analyst, crisis manager. Folks, let's just be real clear here. We know who led this riot. We know who instigated this riot. Here's some ads that people are putting out showing you the sheer hypocrisy of Republicans on this very issue. Watch this one ad right here.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress.
President Trump is responsible for provoking the events of the day.
The president's language and rhetoric crossed a line, and it was reckless.
The president needs to understand that his actions were the problem, not the solution.
This is the cost of telling thousands of people that there is a legitimate shot of overturning the election.
All the fingerprints of an Antifa operation. It's the way they operate.
I knew those are people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement, would never do anything to break a law.
We now know there was no armed insurrection. Nobody had arms.
There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. If you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
Was January 6th an insurrection, or could it be more accurately described as a mob of misfits?
It was Trump supporters who lost their lives that day. Not Trump supporters who were taking the lives of others.
Truth is being censored and covered up. As a result, the DOJ is harassing peaceful patriots across the country.
Out of their minds. They are absolute liars. They are participants in this insurrection, Monique. And hopefully President Joe Biden tomorrow is going to speak truth to power and say exactly who was wrong in all of this, and they should be all held accountable.
Well, I mean, he's the power speaking the power. So, there's no bigger power for him to speak truth to. But I am hoping that he will use the opportunity to be bold and use plain language about what happened and about a path forward, which is really what is necessary here. The unfortunate part, though, Roland, is that it doesn't really matter what he says. There is a group, we're calling them fringe, but it's not really fringe if we don't know an accurate count on the numbers. There is a group that no matter what he says, they view him as an illegitimate president. They view anything that he says as a lie, and they skew any and everything they hear in order to keep themselves and keep the former president blameless. And there is nothing that can be done in one speech tomorrow to fix that.
This is what Jen Psaki, the White House spokesman, had to say about President Biden's plans tomorrow.
Tomorrow the president is going to speak on Capitol Hill. Is he going to address his predecessor's role in the riot?
Yes, and let me give you a little more preview of that. In addition, and I know I noted this yesterday, but I think it's important for people to let me briefly reiterate, the president is going to speak to the truth of what happened, not the lies that some have spread since, and the peril it posed to the rule of law and our system of democratic governance. He will also speak to the work we still need to do to secure and strengthen our democracy and our institutions, to reject the hatred and lies we saw on January 6th, and to unite our country. I'd also note that President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat the former president represents to our democracy, and how the former president constantly works to undermine basic American values and rule of law. And President Biden has, of course, spoken repeatedly about how the former president abused his office, undermined the Constitution, and ignored his oath to the American people in an effort to amass more power for himself and his allies. He sees January 6th as a tragic culmination of what those 4 years under President Trump did to our country. And they reflected the importance to the president of winning what he has called many times, and you've heard him call many times, the battle for the soul of our nation. So just as you heard him say on January 6th of last year, I would expect that President Biden will lay out the significance of what happened at the Capitol and the singular responsibility President Trump has for the chaos and carnage that we saw. And he will forcibly push back on the lies spread by the former president in an attempt to mislead the American people and his own supporters, as well as distract from his role in what happened. So he will, of course, speak to the moment, to the importance in history of the peaceful transfer of power, of what we need to do to protect our own democracy and be forward-looking, but he will also reflect on the role his predecessor had.
Will he call Donald Trump out by name?
we'll see. We're finalizing the speech, but I think people will know who he's referring to.
One more question. When it comes to
He should call him out by name. Scott?
I mean, sure, but everybody knows who it is. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Scott,
Scott.
he should call him out by name.
And he should keep calling him out by name. This was an incredible juxtaposition, the video that you showed, and then the statements made by these Republican leaders closer to January 6th and then later. There's just no excuse for this insurrection, this domestic terrorism. 5 police officers died. Some would argue that 10 died because of the ramifications of them being there. 140 law enforcement people were injured. These are facts, and the videos don't lie. And what's amazing about the divisiveness in this country is that there is a significant portion of the Republican Party and of America who will believe whatever Donald Trump says, despite what they see. It's like your grandmother said, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? And they're going to believe Donald Trump and not their lying eyes. And so it's just really, really disappointing. But the real issue for the real issue for Biden and for the DOJ is what are we going to do about this political violence or the threat of political violence as we move forward? We cannot ignore it. Whether we have to negotiate with them or whether we have to put it to bed, we cannot go into 2022 and 2024 with that segment of society out there that's willing to commit violence based on politics and the big lie. We've got to hear about that tomorrow from Biden.
Robert, I just don't think you can dance around this. There are 57 people who participated in the actions on that day who are running for office as Republicans across this country. You got Donald Trump continually lying. You got Peter Navarro out there talking about they had 100 House members lined up to essentially throw this back to 6 states and have the House vote on this to steal this election. The co-conspirators are there on Capitol Hill as we speak. And I just think you don't allude to it. I don't think you sort of, go roundabout. No, I think you have to look evil in the eye and call those demonic spirits out.
You're absolutely correct. I was on Santita Jackson's radio show this morning with social scientist Dwight McKee, and Dr. McKee made a very good point that if you look at what happened in the early 90s, if you look at Waco, Ruby Ridge, Michigan militia, that all led up to the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. So you can very much look at January 6th as being the dry run, the practice round. Didn't really know what they were doing. They organized it last minute. People are coming in from all over the country. But what happens next time? If we do not prosecute these people, if we do not change laws, if we do not empower law enforcement to address what happened then, what happens next time when they come back better organized, better planned, and with, as you said, a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, and a majority of those members who are part of this Stop This Steal MAGA domestic terrorism movement? What happens when the prison guards are the co-conspirators, so to say? So to think that they're just simply going to slink back into the population, go away, they tried one time and they're not going to try again. Well, that's just as antithetical to history. So unless we want to start seeing this happen at every single state house for every governor's election, every state or every local race, when it's mayor or county commissioner, you got a crowd of angry MAGAs at the door ready to overthrow City Hall. Well, you're going to have to take drastic action on the federal level to make sure that this nation knows that it's not simply election security, it is republic security. If you're in France, you'll notice they say they are the 5th French Republic. That's because those republics have risen up and fallen to dictators over and over again throughout their history. We have to stop thinking that this democracy, this republic, is eternal. If we do not stand up and fight for it, then it goes away, and we end up in the same type of authoritarian, autocratic government that they want and that they've been planning for decades.
Monique, do you believe that Merrick Garland is moving too slow to prosecute those involved on January 6, 2021?
No, I don't have any way of knowing what fast or slow is. He is doing a methodical, thorough investigation. And as he said in the clip that you played, and beyond that, they start at the bottom, it's low-hanging fruit, and they work their way up, and they put the pieces together to get to a place where whatever they can prove with evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, they charge. And so while everybody may know where we are heading and whom we believe should be held responsible, there really is only one right way for the Justice Department to do their job. That doesn't mean, however, that there aren't other agencies or other bodies of government, for instance, the legislative branch, that can't be doing other things that go along with what Robert just finished saying. We have people who are serving as members of Congress who are in fear of other members of Congress who are gun carrying, who are threat wielding, who voted against the legitimacy and the peaceful transfer of power, and they are walking around in office. So there have to be ways to censure and to remove people who do not stand for this government that they took an oath of office to protect. So I think everything has to happen at once, and I think it is happening at once, but I think rightly so. We will not know what the Justice Department is doing until they do it.
Bottom line here, Scott. Bottom line here, Scott. You cannot play footsie with evil. These people are evil. You must call them out. They must be arrested. Yes, Democrats should be moving to throw out Congressman Paul Gosar, throw out Lauren Boebert, throw out Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't give a damn what Kevin McCarthy has to say. Republicans are going to defend their own regardless of whatever they do, and you must expose these people for the menace to society that they are.
And it's offensive. It's just outright offensive. It's not loyalty. They're not patriots. They're not loyalists to democracy. They're loyalists to power and politics and violence. And you saw it unfold there. And so what's moving too slow, in my opinion, is why hasn't Donald Trump been charged or subpoenaed to come before the committee that's investigating this? Why haven't the 100 co-conspirators in the House, perhaps some in the Senate, been subpoenaed to come testify? And why can't we move faster on those who would fight the subpoena? Fight a subpoena to come give testimony for bad acts being committed, treasonous acts, insurrectionist acts against 2/3 of our government, attacks on our democracy. And these are elected officials. It is just downright unbelievable. And I got to tell you, the precursor to a potential civil war. Again, if we don't prosecute these people, but do more, but address this divisiveness in this country, because that's where we're headed. This democracy hasn't been challenged in several centuries, if you will, but there's no reason to stop and not think that this democracy could be challenged again by these divisive, far-right conservative extremists. We better take notice because it's a real possibility.
Robert, this is what Senator Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, had to say today in the Senate Rules Committee as they talked about January 6th.
Let's be clear. Let's be very clear. January 6th was not merely a census act of mob violence that sprung up spontaneously. It was an attempt to reverse, through violent means, the outcome of a free and fair election. And make no mistake, the root cause of January 6th is still with us today. It is the big lie, pushed by Donald Trump, that is undermining faith in our political system and making our democracy, our country, less safe. The biggest threat to our Capitol police, and our democracy is the insidious motives stemming from the big lie, propagated by the former president and many of his Republican allies across the country. We can and we will continue to make sure the Capitol is safe from a security standpoint, but without addressing the root causes of the violence on January 6th, the insurrection will not be an aberration. It could well become the norm.
Real clear here, Robert. The people who were involved in this, if the Republicans win the House and the Senate after the midterms, these evil people, these menace to society, they are going to be the ones in charge.
Exactly, and that's what we need to fear. And for Chuck Schumer, I think also there's a legislative aspect to it. Part of part of the issue that Merrick Garland has is there aren't laws on the books that make this illegal, quite frankly, and what many of these people have done. So what a lot of these people are charged with are misdemeanor trespassing charges, being in the Capitol not during tour hours, and that's where they're getting these light sentences, 90 days in jail, 6 months in jail, along those lines. Meanwhile, there's somebody sitting in jail for 20 years over weed, and so another person who stormed the Capitol gets 60 or 90 days in custody. So Congress has to go through and actually create a suite of legislation that will ensure that if this happens again in the future, those members of Congress who are involved are automatically expelled. That should just be across the board. If you participated in an insurrection against the American government, you should be automatically expelled from Congress. They shouldn't have to vote on it. You shouldn't have to have a political majority to do so. And also for individuals who stormed the Capitol in this nature, you have to create federal charges for them to make it easier to prosecute them in the future. That sends the message this will not be tolerated in this democracy. And frankly, I think you can get moderate Republicans on board with that.
Bottom line here is, again, let me remind people, these are the people who will be in charge if nothing is done. I need people to understand that. And so if you dance around it, you play cute, nah, that's not how you deal with evil. You must confront it head on. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to break. When we come back, more on Roland Martin Unfiltered, including our daily report on Black and Missing. Also, bomb threats against 9 HBCUs. What is happening in America? You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
My name is Charlie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson Whitfield.
And I'm
Kira Reed has been missing from Chicago since December 30th, 2021. The 15-year-old is 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 100 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a dark hoodie and skinny black jeans. She has long hair that she likes to wear up. Anyone with information on Kira Reed's whereabouts should please call Chicago Police Department at 312-744-8266, 312-744-8266. Yesterday, 9 HBCUs across the country received bomb threats. The schools included Howard University, North Carolina Central, Xavier, Spelman, Texas Southern University, Norfolk State, the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, Florida Memorial, and Prairie View A&M. The threats led to evacuations and investigations by law enforcement officials. Presently, no credible threats were found, and students and faculty are safe. Florida Memorial tweeted in part yesterday, after a thorough search, no suspicious packages were found and no one was harmed. The campus returned to normal. Today, officials have not released any leads on the bomb threats, and we're certainly keeping our eyes on the story and will give you any updates. That should be of serious concern, Robert, because clearly to have 9 HBCUs, that means someone is specifically targeting historically black colleges and universities.
Exactly, and I think that was my first thought, many people's first thoughts, that if you look at the amount of notoriety that HBCUs have gotten in the popular culture and the mass media the last couple of years, with that additional attention comes additional bad actors. You know, you have Dion bringing spotlight to Jackson State. You have Howard University, of course, being preeminent in public attention. You have Clark Atlanta and the Atlanta University Center. Many of these white supremacist groups and bad actors had no idea they existed because it was outside of their purview. But now that they're in the spotlight, now that they see the threat that they pose to systemic racism and the traditional white power structure is going to bring these sorts of threats, and thank God they were fake this time. But we do have to work out and look at increasing security of these institutions to make sure that our next generation of black leaders are safe and secure on campus.
The thing we also must look at here, Scott, and I'm not connecting these two, we talk about January 6th, but what doesn't get talked about a lot were the pipe bombs that were found outside the Democratic National Committee, and they still have not found the person who actually placed those there.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. What we need to watch now, and I agree with Robert, what we need to watch now is whether there'll be any additional bomb threats against any of the other HBCUs. Is there a pattern and practice? How were these threats received by the schools, whether it was in writing or communications or verbal communications, and kind of what the police are sifting through to try to trace those calls, whether it's a burner phone or not. You know, they've got to use some type of phone system, and those records can be reviewed. It's disturbing, but I think there's a relationship between these bomb threats and not only the high-profile nature of these institutions, but the fact that they're receiving millions of dollars from major white donors as a result of George Floyd. And with that will come this negative behavior by that far-right extremist domestic terrorism. But I think they ought to be on call or be on notice and take security measures beyond the fact that this was a fake call. They've got to be on notice and be on security alert for some time now. That's the new reality.
Obviously, Monique, this causes serious disruptions. You got students returning back to campus and returning to classes. And so hopefully this won't continue, but it should be of concern that it hit 9 HBCUs on one day.
Yes, but what I would hope would happen, because this would not just be domestic terror or a type of terror attack, if any of them were actually followed through, it would also be a hate crime. And so there are a number of federal agencies that, one, should be involved in surveillance, and perhaps already were. I don't know what intelligence the FBI or the CIA were receiving about this before it happened, but also can be involved in the protection of these universities. So where these trigger points have happened and where we now know about it, that should be enough for there to be enhanced protection and surveillance systems across the board.
All right, folks, let's talk about COVID. The first U.S. cases of Flurona have been reported in California. Flurona is having both influenza and coronavirus at the same time. The patient is described as a teenage boy with mild symptoms who tested positive for both viruses. He and his family had just returned from Cabo San Lucas. He was the only member experiencing symptoms. Only one of his parents has tested positive for COVID. Just to understand how serious this is, go to my iPad, please. The NFL is looking at having Dallas, actually Arlington, Texas, where the Cowboys play, to be the backup in case they can't play the Super Bowl in Los Angeles as a result of the outbreak of Omicron. Also, the Grammys announced they are delaying the January 31st Grammy ceremony taking place. No word from the NAACP on if they're going to be moving and changing the date of the NAACP Image Awards, which is going to be in late February. I mean, look, the bottom line is, that there's grave concern because of how Omicron is just spreading all across the country. You have a new variant that's been found in France. Now, of course, you have this Flurona. It is something that we have to pay attention to, Robert, and it is the new normal. And again, people can run around and people can keep saying, hey, this is no big deal. And you can have these folks, these anti-vaxxers out there. It is like Candace Owens, who goes, I would rather die than get the vaccine. Well, guess what? COVID don't give a shit about how you think. And again,
sit tight.
And look, I mean, look, it don't play. Look, I've had these people try to come at me. Why are you trying to tell our people to get this poison? All right. Go ahead and mess around if y'all want to. But when you look at these numbers, when I look at these healthcare professionals who are just inundated and talking about how they have been just impacted and decimated by COVID. I was reading Dr. Tyson Bell's Twitter feed yesterday and today, where he was talking about just again what it has been like dealing with this and how hard it's been difficult. In fact, they were talking about the number of people who they've had to assist and how these rooms have been filled. Don't go to my iPad yet, please. Thank you. They've been talking about how many people in terms of rooms being filling up. In fact, this year, I'm going to show you a tweet in a second. This is a tweet that Dr. Tyson Bell sent out. Reflections from another ICU week, seeing multiple family members admitted or have died from COVID. They're unvaxxed. Admitting family members of staff again, also unvaxxed. Staffing is stretched beyond thin. Same story across the country. Y'all, Omicron Delta is crushing us. Robert, Mayo Clinic announced that they're firing 700 staffers because they refuse to get vaccinated.
Look, Roland, I'm not saying that we're doomed, but it's seeming very doomish. Like 2022 is starting off and it feels very 2020-ish right now. The people who are not currently vaccinated, for the most part, ain't getting vaccinated. And we just got to start, saving up to put that GoFundMe up for the funeral and all that stuff. And I hope they have some health insurance, because we have to figure out how to progress and move on as a society from people who simply are just banging their head against the wall and saying that they're not going to do the most fundamental and baseline things to protect public health. Look, you still have people who don't want to wear masks, who are anti-maskers. We are 3 years into a pandemic. How are you still an anti-masker? There's a movie on Netflix right now, Don't Look Up, where there's an asteroid coming to kill everybody, and still half of the population refuses to even look up and see the asteroid coming to kill us. That is the people who are right now refusing to get vaccinated, refusing to get boosted, don't want to social distance, don't want to wear masks. Atlanta be open on weekends. They pretend that nothing ever happened. So I'm not sure how we can ever get past this as long as you have a large portion of the population that refuses to follow science, refuses to follow even the most baseline efforts at public health. I had Omicron a couple weeks ago. I promised myself I was going to lose 20 pounds by the new year. Omicron came along and knocked that right on out.
I know the feeling.
If I could just get like a little bit of Omicron, just like a little bit before summer, I'm going to be bad. I'm be out there. Just the good part.
No, damn that. Let me tell you.
Don't say that.
Let me tell you.
I know what you mean.
Hold on. It was rough. It was 2 rough days. I'll definitely say that.
Let me tell you something right now. I dealt with it. I don't want to deal with it again. I don't give a damn about no mild symptoms. When you see a fever hit 104, that is nothing to play around with. You want to get that down as quickly as possible. The thing that we're also looking at, Monique, of course, you look at again, the Mayo Clinic, the esteemed Mayo Clinic, having to fire nearly 700 employees because they refused to get vaccinated. And their whole deal is, how in the hell can we be a healthcare provider and then y'all don't want to get vaccinated? And so people, and then, which now that's going to put further stress on the medical system. These hospitals having to fire people who are working at hospitals who don't want to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and this is all very Jim Jones-ish, right? Because to me, there's a through line, there's a thread, there's a direct connection and a place of responsibility for all of this. So the segment that we just finished about tomorrow's anniversary and about what happened on January 6th and who was responsible for it is the same conversation that we are having about these vaccine refusers, these mask refusers. It is all stemming from the same place of manipulation, the same place of ignorance, and as you say, Roland, the same place of evil. So when we are looking at our society, because I think it doesn't help us just to figure out case by case by case what is happening, what we are seeing, as I think Robert said earlier, is we're seeing the deterioration of democracy, yes, but also the deterioration of independent thought. We do not have common facts, so we cannot reach common conclusions, and even our debates are striated, infused with stupidity, because we have people who have controlled the narrative and controlled the minds, the thought processes, and the decisions of others who are weaker and who are easier influenced. And we are seeing the consequences in blood, in death, in economy, in voting. We are seeing it everywhere. So whomever doesn't believe when they look at other countries that have had democracies that were older than ours and fell, they need to wake up and wake up now.
I agree with that, Scott. And it's just, look, people keep talking about, oh, symptoms are mild. Folks are still dying as a result of COVID. Hospital ICUs are still being filled up. And if I hear one more damn person say, do your own research, I'm sorry, you're dealing with people who talk shit to me, who can't even Google segments that we've actually done on the very thing. I mean, I get people coming at me, I had some dumbass today, you called out Antonio Brown, you ain't never called out Aaron Rodgers, you ain't never called out Jason Whitlock, and I'm like, I was in Los Angeles for a whole hour, sit down, dogging Jason Whitlock to his face. And I'm like, it's basic YouTube search. And so that's what kills me. Do your own research. I'm like, you don't know what the hell you're even looking for. I mean, look, I took some Creamotion cough medicine. I don't know what the hell's in that Creamotion.
That's right.
I was not sitting here going, let me look at all the ingredients. Y'all, come on. That's what we're dealing with, folk who don't even ask a question, what's in a hot dog?
Yes.
Or
what's in cheese? Come on, man, go ahead.
Or what's in their marijuana, or what's in other drugs that they take, or the cigarettes they smoke. I mean, we can't even agree in this democracy right now on what the truth is. Is the sky blue or not? They'll say, well, it's a reddish color, looking at a blue sky. And Roland, here's a thought for you, perhaps the panel too. Maybe this is just where we are. Maybe we spend a lot of time criticizing the anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers and Republicans and what have you. This First Amendment is really killing us on this COVID piece. Maybe this is the new reality. Maybe we're going to have to just manage COVID going forward, manage the bad actors. Maybe we don't get the herd immunity, and we just got to live with this until our democracy dies.
Well, but here's the
where we're headed.
But the issue, though, this issue actually predates COVID. What we're talking about here, Robert, really, with the explosion of social media, the explosion of TikTok doctors, the explosion of YouTube scientists, the explosion of Twitter political scientists. So we're now operating in this world where people actually think that they are experts on shit they don't know nothing about. I mean, I remember when Ferguson jumped off. There were people who were, man, why you not on the ground in Ferguson? Because we don't have the equipment to broadcast the show live. Well, there are other people who are there. Other people don't have a show. They're holding a phone up. So they were sitting there going back and forth with me, and I'm going, do you even remotely understand that in order to broadcast a show for 2 hours, because we were 7 to 9 a.m. on TV1, we actually have to have a stable connection. You must have the very equipment to do that, the lighting and all of those different things. We literally had none of that. We had none of those things at that time at TV1. And so these folks were going off, and I'm like, you don't even have a show. So you're telling me how to do my job when you know nothing about my job. And that's where we are, because these people think they can Google anything, and now they are an expert on how to do your job. I know people who are construction engineers. I don't even like changing a light bulb. You think I'm about to sit here and have a debate with an engineer on how to construct a building? No. That's why you hire somebody who went to school to become an engineer. But that's where we are now. We got everybody and their mama who think they on YouTube, and I got people, man, hitting me up. I had a sister who hit me up, and I'm gonna go. She said, you need to have Rizza Islam on your show. I said, to talk about COVID. I said, is he a doctor or a scientist? No. I said, why would I have him on? Well, he's well read. I said, I'm sorry, is he a doctor or a scientist? No. Well, why am I going to have him on to talk about COVID? Now, I could have easily not even mentioned his name and just could have alluded to it, but I'm giving an example. And she was going back and forth. I said, would I have a non-lawyer on breaking down the Derek Chauvin verdict? If they were an activist, that's their lane. I said, but I'm not going to have a non-lawyer breaking down the legal aspects of the Derek Chauvin verdict. I said, if I'm having a conversation about food, I'm probably going to have a chef. I'm not going to have a car mechanic who doesn't cook. Just because he read a cookbook does not make him a chef. And I think that's just where we are. We are at, well, it would be a great debate. You'd get a lot of views. And I said, I don't need them. I said, I'm not interested in using my platform talking to people who are not experts on the subject. Now, does he have an opinion? Yes. Does he have lots of followers? Yes. Do people go, oh man, I love what he has to say? Yes. That's great. And I told her they are more than welcome to listen to him on any of those platforms. But I am not going to have somebody on discussing a medical health issue who does not have any expertise in the issue. I said, send me his bio. She did. I saw where he mediated some gang dispute. I said, if we were having a conversation about how to deal with gang issues, I would more than welcome to invite him because he has experience in that. But I'm not having a conversation about COVID if you got no knowledge or experience on that very issue. And also, I think he's on some list, the 12 biggest disinformation, some list, whatever. It's a bunch of people, Robert Kennedy Jr. is on it. But again, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just not. I am not going to waste time talking to people who are not experts or subject matter experts. It ain't gonna happen.
Well, Roland, to your point, we live in a society right now where everything is up for debate. There is no such thing as expertise. It's all about who has the loudest voice, the biggest microphone. As my best friend Tyrone says, social media gives everybody an opinion, and that's the problem with it. And so you can have somebody who's a NFL quarterback debating an immunologist who has 50 years of experience in disease control under the belt. Well, they think that that's an even discussion because they're both well-known people of notoriety. And I give people this challenge who don't want to believe experts. Take all the money out of your bank account. Don't go to a financial planner. Don't go to a certified advisor. Don't go to a CPA. Don't go to an accountant. Go to your homeboy down the street who posts stuff on Facebook and just tell him, invest all my money for me. So if you're not willing to go to, if you're willing to put all of your money at risk on somebody that you saw on the internet who's not an expert or something, then why would you put your health at risk with somebody who's on the internet who does not have an expertise in something? We have to get back to at least sharing the same objective reality. Even back to the January 6th people. Those folks do not share and inhabit the same reality that the rest of us do. And so when you have different silos of information, different silos of knowledge, you can pick and choose the people you follow. You can pick and choose the truth that you want to believe in, and that only leads to continued division in the country. Because if we do not have a common core set of facts that we all can agree on, then we don't have a nation that we live in anymore.
And again, this is not, I'm not singling anybody out, Monique. This is across the board. And I think what has happened is you have so much information out here, and you have people who, and I think, again, I said it before, black people, we, and it's not just us, but I see white folks doing it as well, but we fall in love with people who have rhetorical flourishes. Oh man, he dropping that knowledge. What is he saying? Oh man, he's speaking that truth. But what is he saying? See, just because somebody sounds knowledgeable does not make what they're saying. I remember that early on, that was a guy, it was a video that went around. They were like, man, listen to this doctor, listen to this doctor. He went before the school board, and man, he was dropping that knowledge. First of all, the school that he went to wasn't even a real school. And what he studied wasn't even in the subject. But he sounded so authoritative. I guess we're living now in that world. Who's that black kid who kept getting arrested for impersonating people? Remember he went to jail and I mean, he impersonated a doctor. That's what we got now. We got folk who literally, because of social media, are impersonating knowledgeable people. And it's just not going to happen. I was just looking at, there was a guy who was a manager for a rapper, and I was just looking at it, and he had a heart attack. And he was thanking Bun B and another guy for they were taking a picture, and he was literally having a heart attack while they were taking the picture. And he said, man, the doctor saved my life. If I'm having a conversation about cardiovascular health, I'm not talking to a gardener. It's just not going to happen.
Right. And you know what? I was smiling because I have had to remind myself of that recently, because I was getting frustrated with the messaging that was going out from a number of people who have very significant platforms, and of whom I hold in high esteem, but in my opinion, were putting out messaging that pushed us backward rather than forward, and that was skewed to a particular point of view that had nothing to do really with what could actually be done. And I've seen that a number of times in legal cases where, you know, we come on here on your show and we often discuss things exactly as they are, you know, where if somebody is found guilty and we knew all along based on the way the trial was going, it made sense to us, but you could have someone else to come on and it'd be like, storm the Bastille, you know, storm the Capitol. It's about white folks. It's about black folks. It's about racism. It's about classism. And it wasn't about none of that. It was about that jury, that judge, those lawyers, the poor job they did, etc. And what I've had to remind myself is it's not just ignorance that is skewing things right now. It is agendas that are skewing things. And I'm not saying that that's new, but as you said, with social media being so prevalent, with people being able to talk to 1 million people, 140 characters at a time, and say something that could be loud and dead ass wrong, it is dangerous. And so what I've had to see is that I can still have respect for the organizer in their job in their lane, the lawyer in their job in their lane, you as a journalist and thought leader in your lane, and understand though that I need experts in each of those fields. And the journalist isn't going to give me what the doctor will give me, and the lawyer is not going to give me what the activist will give me. I need full counsel. I ain't gonna start preaching, but I need full multitude of counsel and full counsel in order to have the facts straight. And I had a conversation. I won't say her name because I'm not free to share that conversation. But I respect greatly someone who is a leader in the organism and activist lane, who had said something that was kind of like directly opposite of something. Like, it hurt my heart. It was so opposite of what we were trying to get done in Texas at the time. And she called me though, and she said, listen, this is my job. And I want to explain to you that from my perspective, this is not about that. I know it might be important to you for these reasons, but for what we are trying to do and what our objectives are, I cannot go along with it. I can't go along with it publicly, and I can't go along with it privately. And I learned that lesson that day, because on the one hand, she's saying something really good is happening. Maybe it's good long-term, maybe it isn't, but she told me directly, but I'm not gonna say it's good. So people need to understand that when they're listening to people, unless you're just listening to somebody who's calling balls and strikes, you need to filter for their motivation and agenda, whether it is a positive one or a negative one, when you listen to what they say.
And there are people, and again, look, there are people who sometimes say stuff and it's quite emotional, and they think it's one thing, but when they don't really understand the nuance, it's something else. I remember being there was a rally at a church in Dallas after Botham Jean was killed. And at that rally, the district attorney, the then Dallas DA, Faith Johnson, was there, Ben Crump was there, some of the other lawyers were there. And folks were going off on the DA, charge the cop with murder. Ben was like, I wish people in the crowd would chill with this.
Because it ain't gonna happen.
And he's, well, no, it wasn't that wasn't gonna happen. He said, what they don't understand is, in Texas law, if she's charged with murder and when she's convicted, from the city's perspective,
they'll cut her loose.
They cut her loose, and they don't have to pay any settlements.
Yeah.
He was walking through lawyers, and I mean, it's lawyers, and we've had this conversation on this show, where we've talked about folks like, well, why didn't they charge him with first-degree murder? And they were like, well, actually, they can actually get a longer sentence with a second-degree murder charge and this other charge versus that. And it's understanding how you're trying to sit here, because the goal is for them to be penalized for what they did. The point is, how do you get the conviction? And that, Scott, is where expertise comes in. And so that's why you ask experts who do this. And even when you're talking about law, there are some people who have been paid contributors on networks as legal commentators who ain't never stepped foot in a courtroom.
Exactly.
They ain't never tried a case. They ain't never tried a case, and they just sitting here, I mean, just running off at the mouth. And they, black and white, run off at the mouth. And I talk to other lawyers like, you know, she ain't never tried a case. You know he ain't never been in a courtroom. And that's so to my point to the audience, so even when we are deciding who comes on the show, I'm looking at their resume. Okay, what have you done? Folk go, well, you gotta have so-and-so on. No, but what have they done? No, man, they'd be great. No. What have they done? And that's where we are, I think, right now. And it's taking such a hold. These people are, they have gone so far with it. And that's why what I've done is this here. If y'all don't want to take the vaccine, fine, don't take the vaccine. But what's not going to happen, I'm not going to not counter your lies. And then what I'm not going to do is feed into the, because people say, I had somebody on YouTube said, well, why don't you have the person on to debate you and you might persuade those who follow them? No, y'all, that's the game.
Nope.
See, the moment, I told y'all about the people against critical race theory. The moment you booked them on the show, that's what they wanted. That's the win for them. Scott, go ahead.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think the panelists are too. But the power of social media makes everybody believe that they're an expert when they just have an opinion, if you will. And it's very frustrating, especially when the opportunities for lawyers to get on TV, there's a lot of content and a lot of opportunity, and I don't think the media, as a general proposition, is reading their bios or resumes.
No, they're not. No. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell y'all how the game goes. I'm gonna tell everybody right now how the game goes. Oh wow, he's provocative. She's provocative. They sound great. They look great. They know how to speak in sound bites. Book them. I'm telling you, I have seen the game. I have seen it. I spent 6 years at CNN. I saw it with my own eyes. Who got elevated? Ooh, so-and-so. They get the other side riled up. Yeah, book them again, book them again. No. What are they saying? It's always the case. And man, and then I've been in debates with folk on TV who are arguing the opposite position, and we're going to the green room. Oh yeah, that was fun. But it's a whole lot of money in this thing. And you sitting there going, oh, it's also the game. There are people out here, and that's why that list of the disinformation dozen or whatever, they're talking about. These people are selling books, selling DVDs, tapes. They're making more money off the Robert Kennedy, whatever group he is, Robert Kennedy Jr., their income has blown through the roof since COVID hit.
It pays. On top of all that,
there you go.
Hey,
and that's why Facebook is getting called out for promoting all the lies, because they're giving them a foothold. Go ahead.
And they're not highly regulated, and Congress isn't regulating them. But you're right. I mean, if you're provocative, you don't have to have depth and substance. And when you get to the legal profession or the medical profession, depth and substance and training is super important and goes to your credibility. Apparently not when it comes to the media. And so, the reality is, social media changed everything, right? These opinions were always out there, but there wasn't a delivery system for it, an influential delivery system. And now you can reach millions of people and share your opinion with them and your followers. And so here again, this is the new reality that's got to be managed. It'll be interesting. You and I had a debate about a year ago about whether your social media should be regulated or not, or whether it was going to be free enterprise. I think social media has changed our democracy and changed how we think with these disinformation influencers and what have you. And I do think it's dangerous. I've come around to this view because of Trump and the Republicans and the damage done to our democracy. You don't know what the truth is. You don't know what people are going to believe or not believe. And that's really dangerous when you got a First Amendment and a Constitution and a belief that somehow political violence is a possibility and a reality in 2022 or 2024. And something's got to give. Something's got to change.
And again, the people who used to be the cranks who would be in the barbershops talking to 4 or 5 people, they now can speak to 40, 50,000, 500,000, a million, and then it just reverberates, and which is why you got to have a trusted news source. That's why, folks, we tell you why it's important for you to watch this show, support this show, the things that we're doing, because it is about getting real information that is truthful. If you want to download the Black Star Network app, please do so on all available platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Roku TV, Samsung Smart TV, Xbox, Amazon Fire. You can also support us via our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is simple: to get 20,000 of our fans annually to give an average of $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You can give less, you can give more. We appreciate every dollar given. Cash App is RM Unfiltered, PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Gonna go back, gonna do a couple of more stories. We come back on the flip side of this break. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
White supremacy ain't just about hurting black folk.
Right.
We got to deal with it. It's injustice. It's wrong.
I do feel like in this generation, we've got to do more around being intentional and resolving conflict.
You and I haven't always agreed.
Yeah.
But we agree on the big piece.
Yeah.
Our conflict is not about destruction.
Conflict's going to happen. Hi,
All right, folks, not sure why our drops are not working today. This is the last story for our panel here. A Philadelphia man has been freed from prison after 37 years in a case tarnished by detectives who allegedly offered a witness sex and drugs at police headquarters in exchange for false testimony. The trial witness was charged with perjury days after Willie Stokes was convicted of murder in 1984. But Stokes was never told of that perjury plea until 2015 while serving a life sentence. A federal judge has called the violation of his constitutional rights egregious. Both detectives in question, they're now deceased. The question, what happens to Willie Stokes? This is one of those things where, it's like, how do you compensate someone 37 years? What the detectives did, this is just unbelievable, Monique.
Yeah, and there's no fix. There is no fix for it. There's no amount of money in the world that can compensate for a life. Whether someone is falsely imprisoned for a day or for 100 days or for 37 years, there really is no way to compensate someone for time during which they lost their liberty unjustly. So we have figured out calculations for those things. Certain cities have it where it's a certain amount of dollars per day that they use as a calculus when there is a false arrest and false imprisonment, but it does not compensate properly. And that's, of course, the same thing when you're getting a wrongful death verdict. I don't care how many millions you give a mama. There is no way that compensates for the loss of a child. So this is a tragedy and a travesty.
The story here from NPR, this is what it says, Robert. One surviving prosecutor, now in private practice, did not immediately return messages seeking comment Tuesday. However, he has given a statement saying he doesn't remember either case.
How convenient. And just as Monique said, there really is no solution to this. And I think we have to start going to our state legislatures and kind of pushing them to create a statutory solution for these sorts of things. When you think about it, there really should be a statutory right of action, because right now it really just comes down to what the family will accept. Let's start saying that, look, if we falsely imprison you for your entire life, then we will have uncapped damages that you can sue the state for. I bet you they get a whole lot more careful on these prosecutions when they start renaming streets after your son and daughter. They have to give City Hall over to the family of the victim. Maybe that will give people the message of what we're talking about when we're discussing criminal justice reform. Not just dead people shot by cops, but it's a systemically broken system from the bottom to the top. From the time you have your first encounter with police until appeal, there are flaws in the system all the way through. And until we start giving people the private right of action to go after the system itself, there'll be no way to actually get the reforms we need. We have seen court systems be recalcitrant to change. We've seen legislatures be recalcitrant to change. The minute you start talking about not arresting low-level offenders, you get the police unions and everybody else come marching and protesting, saying you're soft on crime. We have to change the laws which underpin these things to give people more rights so they can fight back against a system that is fighting against them.
Scott, but this is what's so crazy. Go back to my iPad. This is the NPR story. The homicide prosecutors that used Franklin Lee's testimony to convict Willie Stokes then prosecuted Franklin Lee for lying on Willie Stokes, and they never told Willie Stokes. Those are lawyers who should never, ever practice again.
And prosecutors are held to a higher standard, and they didn't tell the defense lawyer for Willie Stokes, and no one told him. And so 40 years ago, over the course of 37 years, he just languished in jail.
Hold on, Scott. I got one better for you. Lee was in jail on rape and robbery charges. He served 35 years and got out 2 years ago.
Unbelievable.
He got out. The dude who lied to get a lighter sentence has been free for 2 years, and the dude he lied on was still in prison. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And nobody cares. Nobody cares. Now, having handled a couple of these cases, there is a statutory right to recover after 37 years for a lot of these cases.
Depending upon the state law.
Huh?
Depending upon the state law.
No, there may be a statutory right, but the limitations, even if you give you the right, there are limitations different state by state in regard to what you can recover for being wrongfully convicted. Secondly, your listening audience needs to understand this, that the prosecutors and the judges involved in outright malfeasance, right, are protected by immunity, if you will, whether it's statutory immunity, limited immunity, or full immunity, and are barred from being prosecuted or even taking their depositions, let alone them being charged or sued civilly, whether it's under 1983 or whether it's on a state statute. And so not only is he free, but now to recover monies, he's got to challenge a system that is embedded in protecting bad actors called the judges and the prosecutors. And it's hard to get around because even if you successfully change the law, the government is going to appeal it. They'll say, this is a problem and we're not proud of this conduct, but obviously we got to protect our taxpayer dollars. And so they will go to the Supreme Court to appeal it, state as well as otherwise, and you'll be litigating for 10, 20, 30 years, and you still may not win, which is why most defendants or who have been released, they settle for something because they don't want to be tied up in litigation for years.
Again, he's 61 years old, and it's amazing how these folks...
He ain't got 20 years of litigation.
And it's amazing how these folks have no problem at all paying out multi-million-dollar police settlements when cops beat folks, but then they don't want to pay somebody who served time in prison who was wrongfully convicted because of police and because of prosecutors.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Absolutely. All right, folks, to panel, thank you so very much. Got a few more headlines to read before we go to our Richard Lawson interview. Thanks a lot, Scott, Robert, and Monique. The oldest known World War II veteran, folks, died this morning. 112-year-old Lawrence Brooks was a member of the Army's majority African-American 91st Engineer Battalion. He served in Australia, New Guinea, and the Philippines during his military career. Brooks was born in 1909 in Louisiana and raised in Mississippi. He's survived by 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and 32 grandchildren. Basketball Hall of Famer Sam Jones passed away at the age of 88 last week. Jones won 10 NBA titles with the Boston Celtics in his 12-year career, second only to teammate Bill Russell. The Celtics spokesman says Jones died Thursday in Florida, where he had been hospitalized in failing health. He was a North Carolina native who played for Hall of Fame coach John McLandon at North Carolina Central. Celtics general manager Red Auerbach selected him 8th overall in the 1957 draft, despite never seeing him play. Sam Jones was 88 years old. R&B singer Jesse Lee Daniels has passed away at the age of 57. He rose to fame as a member of the Force MDs. They were an R&B vocal group formed in Staten Island, New York in 1981. The group had 6 studio albums together, and their last release was in 2000. The musician's management team confirmed the news, and the band paid tribute to him on Facebook.
Thank you.